Good evening, folks. This is Andy Pedraza with Special Effects Academy. We're on the start of the week session in the Forex trading room for May 16th of 2021. We will be going through our regular agenda, look at the prior week's results, our currency strength meter for the week, fundamental announcements scheduled, a look at the major pairs on the daily charts, setups we see in progress, and a few words in conclusion. With that, we'll jump into the ledgers. Nice uptick on the long-term ledger as quite a few trades did close out at profit, bringing us back above 10%. We're in fact at 13% in change, and we still have open trades carrying profit. And of course, we'll be opening more trades. As I mentioned here and there's no point to keeping money in the account unless it's being used for trading. If you're not going to be using the money for trading, take it out and do something else with it. Otherwise, it's a waste of pretty much the fuel that makes your trading vehicle move. Money is the fuel. So if you're just keeping a full tank but never driving the car anywhere, it is a waste of gasoline. So the same thing applies here. We will be looking for replacement trades to use up as much of our margin as we can. On the intermediate, we have taken a little bit of a downtick as that older trade on the Euro Swiss did close out against us. Again, not completely unexpected. The good news is that our trading throughout had pretty much made up for that. So we're slightly in positive territory for the year. And of course, we also have open trades that presumably will continue moving us in the right direction. So again, these things happen. It's a back and forth. It's a zigzag up and down. And we're trying to consistently be moving the up higher than the down. Short-term ledger, no change at all. We have been in multiple trades. They either close out flat or, winners and losers match out. So the account hasn't moved much since the last downtick on taking that same Euro Swiss trade off the books. We do have one trade open right now with the pound Canadian, which shows some promise as the pound is definitely moving into strength as we speak. That's it for the ledgers, notes, and opportunities for improvement. The USD still not looking good. I don't see any good news coming out of the US economy in the near to midterm future. I could be wrong. Anything can happen. We might discover a cure for cancer tomorrow. Who knows? But as things stand right now, there is no good news. No good news should be expected to come out of the US economy for at least the remainder of the year. In fact, quite the opposite. Bad news can and will come out. I don't see the dollar regaining strength anytime soon. The Canadian dollar has been riding and slipping on oil recovery. Oil goes up, the Canadian dollar goes up. Oil slides down, the Canadian dollar slides down. So basically, it's just pegged to the oil price right now, but it is steadily gaining strength, the same as oil. The Australian, and I've been saying this for quite a while, it was overextended. Now it looks like it's starting to slide down. So the market is starting to agree with my impression of the Aussie. We'll see. Everything's not said and done yet. So that could still turn around, but I would definitely not be long the Aussie right now. Pound recovery in full swing. Last week was spectacular for the pound. Indeed, the bulk of our open profit right now is on the pound pairs, and most of the profit we took off the table also on the pound pairs. And inflation concerns are continuing to increase in most of the major economies, and spectacularly as regards to the United States. And again, this is why I don't see the dollar gaining strength anytime soon. Relative strength meter for the past week, the dollar reasonably flat. I mean, it did gain overall, but it's a very small uptick. The euro was almost perfectly flat. The pound, you can see how spectacularly the pound went up. The Kiwi dropped, not a big drop, not a small drop. The Canadian rose, not a big rise, not a small rise. The Aussie was as hard hit as the pound wasn't. So the Australian slid very, very strongly last week. The Swiss barely moved, and the yen continues to weaken. That is your story for the week. Fundamental announcement scheduled. We have the RBA meeting minutes Monday night. We're not going to be trading that live. That's been a dud for months. So I'm not going to be playing that one anymore. Same goes for the ILO unemployment rate coming out of the UK. First of all, it's an inconvenient time. And second, we haven't seen much movement on the pound due to these announcements. The pound is rising right now. So you could say that a bad ILO unemployment rate could nix the pound, but we'll take that risk. We're not going to be trading that one live this month. I will reconsider next month. For now, we're going to give it a pass. On Wednesday, however, we have the FOMC minutes coming out of the US, out of the Fed. And of course, that is highly interesting, seeing as we expect US dollar fragility. And we have the employment change out of Australia in the evening. And well, why not? We're going to be up anyway. So we're going to be moving the 8 p.m. session a little bit later to accommodate the Australians. So that's it. A light calendar for the week, mainly by choice, since I didn't want to trade the meeting minutes out of the RBA or the ILO unemployment out of the UK. So we're going to focus on Wednesday. With that, we move on to the charts. As we can see, oil continues to be at the very top of the chart, its highest high in more than a year. And of course, the Canadian dollar is riding that wave. With that, we move to the currencies. The euro dollar, it went flat for a bit, even dropped, hit support, and now it's starting to come back up. So again, this was more the euro slipping than the dollar rising, of course, but that seems to be over. And as of Friday, it was coming right back up towards the top. Pound dollar, same thing, a bit of pound weakness or dollar strength, take your pick, towards the beginning and middle of the week, and then Thursday into Friday, the pound shining once more. USD JPY continuing to drop into, at last, a little bit of yen strength against the dollar, but not a convincing move. It came after a huge rout on the yen towards the beginning of the week, and it didn't even make it halfway back down to where it was. USD Canadian, also a little bit of a retracement at the beginning of the week, and then Friday, oil prices and the Canadian came back into their own against the dollar, and ending the week a little bit higher than where it was towards the beginning, but still, it is a nice recovery back into the expected direction. USD Swiss going all over the place, but ultimately ending the week pretty much where it started. So a flat week, a little bit of a bouncy ride, but there is still downward pressure. Aussie dollar, the Aussie gaining against the dollar towards the end of the week, but coming after a massive fall Tuesday. So it's not out of the woods. If anything, it's more sideways than anything else, and definitely far away from its most recent high. So we can see that fragility in the Aussie. That doesn't mean the Aussie dollar isn't going to go up, because I expect the dollar weakness to be much bigger than the Australian weakness. So this one could still head up, but it's by no means a given. Kiwi dollar, on the other hand, I do expect it to go back towards the top. It had a rough week, nice recovery on Friday, but overall it was not a good week for the Kiwi. And again, we can see in the strength meter that we saw in an earlier slide that the Kiwi did weaken for the week, although not as much as some of the other, as the Australian, for example. Aussie CAD moving now up, looking like it's Canadian strength. Canadian weakness against the Australian, and that was after a massive sustained drop. So it was overdue for a bit of a retrace, but I don't think it's going to end up going further up. Quite the opposite. I think this one's going to drop all the way to the bottom. Euro Swiss still picking a direction, and we've got this one on ignore. Euro pound trying to come back up, finding support at the bottom of the Kumo, of the Ichimoku cloud, but no sustained move. It had a massive drop earlier in the week, Monday, and that was that. After that, it was slowly trying to make its way back up. And that was mainly euro weakness, not pound strength. Euro JPY, even with the euro weakness that we saw throughout the prior week and some of last week, we see that the Euro JPY continues going up. This is yen weakness playing out. For whatever reason, I still don't quite understand why the yen is weakening, but that is what it's doing. And this one is in breakout mode, and we're already trading it up. Euro CAD is going flat at the bottom, as both the CAD and the euro had a little bit of a struggle last week. Ultimately, I think this one's a prime candidate for a trip back up into that blue channel that we see coming down from the top left corner. So there's about, I'm going to say 500 to 1,000 pips to be had there, depending how far up the retrace goes. I don't think it's going to go any lower than where it is right now. And if it can't go any lower, that leaves it only one direction ultimately, and that's to retrace back up. So this one, keep it on your radars. This one's going to be a good one. Pound JPY, yen weakness, pound strength. What can you say? It's trying to break out at the top yet again, and I think it has much higher to go before all is said and done. Aussie JPY, both of them struggling, the Aussie and the yen, so it didn't do much for the week, more flat than anything else. Still not clear who's going to end up being the winner, though I suspect that if any currency, any of these two currencies is going to strengthen in the near future, it's going to be the yen, not the Aussie. So there's every possibility that we're going to have a ride towards at least the middle of the chart, maybe the bottom. So keep an eye open for that. Euro New Zealand going flat now for the longest time, had a pretty bumpy week, but ultimately didn't do much. Pound Canadian, another one I think will ultimately head up to test resistance, probably towards the middle of the chart, but we want to wait and see that happen a little bit. I think we're in one trade on the pound CAD, and it's looking good. It did bounce off of support. I think there's every chance we're going to have a retrace, but trade this one cautiously. It's not a given. Pound Swiss, another one I think will revisit the top of the chart, so keep your eyes open for that. It is finding support in the Ichimoku cloud right now. And last but not least, Pound Aussie was the biggest mover. We had pound strength and Aussie weakness combining on this pair to make it skyrocket. Yes, it started running into some issues towards the latter half of the week, Thursday into Friday. Actually went down to test support. I think this run is not done. It's still going to head towards the top and keep going. Of course, we don't trade on speculation here. We want to see it happen. So if you're doing that, if it breaches those previous highs from a few days back, that would be your trigger to get in long. If it does breach the cloud and go in the opposite direction, start heading down, when it comes out of the cloud, that would be your trigger to go short. It's really that simple sometimes. And that's it for the charts. Setups we see in progress, of course. The pound continues to go strong. The dollar, I have nothing nice to say about the dollar. I'm sorry, but I am right now a dollar bear. If I had any dollars, I would be selling them or exchanging them for something else. Which is what I normally do anyway, but that's besides the point. Do not be long on the dollar right now unless the market gives you some indication that that is the direction. I see nothing in the charts right now to tell me to be long on the dollar. The Australian, it is weakening. There's no denying that. We've got a couple of weeks in a row now of Aussie stumbling. The yen still moving into weakness in general. I think the only exception towards the second half of last week was against the dollar. Everything else was yen weakness. And the Canadian, of course, continues riding that oil boom for all it's worth. And I don't think oil is done. It may still have another $10 to go before it settles into a new range. And that is another $10 that the Canadian will use to good effect. And that is that as regards to the main part of the presentation. My parting words, I always try to end these presentations with something to give you guys. And today it's responsibility. This session is coming out late. Why? Because I have had no internet at home for the last 3 or 4 days. My internet service provider, Frontier Communications, for anyone who wants to know, sucks. They're the worst possible internet service provider we have. They are also the only internet service provider I have in the very rural area where I live. So I'm trapped. I can't use anybody else, even if I wanted to, which I do want to. I yearn, I dream of the day when some other internet service provider moves into the area and give these incompetent morons some competition. But for now, I'm stuck with Frontier, so I have to wait until they fix their issue, which as of the last time I checked was still not resolved, and we're 4 days into whatever outage they're having. They just can't figure it out. It's area-wide. It's not just my house. It's the entire town, or maybe several towns. So what are you going to do? But anyway, responsibility to be able to operate is always on you when you're a trader. Most people hold down a job. It is up to their employer to make sure that the lights are on, the doors are open, you have stuff to sell to the customers, the cash registers are operating, and you can take in money and credit cards, and then blah, blah, blah. If any of that fails, the employers are going to happily sit around and drink coffee until the situation is fixed. They don't give a shit. It's not their business that's going down the tubes. As traders, you do not have that luxury. It's up to you to be able to trade at any and all times. Yes, I had internet service issues since Thursday through right now. Yet I was always able to trade because I have backups. I couldn't get the session out because doing video and uploading stuff into YouTube and sending massive emails, that takes more bandwidth than I had on hand. But I was always trading. I was always able to do my stuff. Make sure you understand this. Any trader with an employee mentality is soon going to be an employee again, or simply will never stop being one. So you have to be responsible for your shit. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Then don't convince yourself otherwise. Own it. Understand, folks? So that's that. Here's hoping that I have internet at home again soon. Otherwise, well, I have my plan Bs and my plan Cs and my plan Ds. I will not fail because I have a shitty internet service provider called Frontier. Thank you very much, folks. It's been a pleasure having this session, even if it came out a little bit late. Love you all, and I'll see you throughout the week. Take care. Bye-bye.